Good afternoon. Before I start my lesson, I would like to thank the teachers, the counselors, and all the resources that were given to do my sermon. Without them, my sermon would not be the same. When I was in elementary, promises were used in so many different ways. Some kids would try to trick others. Some people, mainly teachers, used them to settle kids down, and others were simply used to show trust. The category where most kids fell into was the tricks category. Kids would cheat other kids out of their things and just to further personal gain. Of course, that is only one example, but there were many more, and all these schemes used promises. Contrary to my elementary promises, we have a promise that will never be broken, a heavenly home. But how do we get there? Please turn to Hebrews 11:13. Hebrews 11:13. It reads, "All these died in faith, without receiving the promises, but having seen them and having welcomed them from a distance, and having confessed that they were strangers and exiles on earth." What does the Hebrew writer mean when said all these? All these are the characters that are mentioned throughout verses 4 through 12. But then after this, it says, died in faith. Well, we already know that all these characters mentioned, to name a few, Enoch, Noah, and Abraham, were faithful. But what were they faithful to? God's promises. God promised multiple things to these people, such as many descendants and a country for those descendants to live in, Canaan, and never to flood the earth again, and many more. But continuing on without receiving the promises. Well, that doesn't make sense. God made promises to these people, but they never received them. What it means is that they never received it in their physical life, but they will see in the future. And it does say in verse 13, continuing on, that they having welcomed them from a distance. So earlier what I said, like how they never saw and received the promises in their physical life, they still welcomed them and were faithful to God and knew that God will fulfill his promises in the future. I would like to turn to Genesis 15, 4 through 6 for a good example of God's promises. Genesis 15, 4 through 6. Then behold, the word of the Lord came to him, saying, "This man will not be your heir, but the one who will come forth from your own body, he shall be your heir." And he took him outside and said, "Now look towards the heavens and count the stars, if you are able to count them." And he said to him, "So shall your descendants be." Then he believed in the Lord, and he reckoned it to him as righteousness. Abraham received the promise of many descendants. He never saw all those descendants in his physical life, but he was faithful to God and knew that in the future he will live up to his promise. And Exodus 3, 6 through 9 says, "He said also, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." Then Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, "I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have given heed to their cry because of their taskmasters, for I am aware of their sufferings. So I have come down to deliver them from the power of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from the land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Amorite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Now behold, the cry of the sons of Israel has come to me. Furthermore, I have seen the oppression with which the Egyptians are oppressing them." Now, if you flip back to Hebrews 11:13 and continuing on to verse 14, it says, "And having confessed that they were strangers and exiles on earth." These characters make it clear that earth is not their home. Their actions show that they love God and want to be with him. Noah and Enoch and Abraham, they did whatever God wanted them to do. They wanted him to use them in his plan. That's why they loved God. In verse 15, it says, "And indeed, if they had been thinking of that country from which they went out, they would have had opportunity to return." They had the freedom to turn back. They could have said that they liked it better on earth, but they did not. We as people have freedom to do whatever, even to turn back. These people were faithful. They wanted to please God, even when they had the freedom to not listen. Verse 16, it says, "But as it is, they desire a better country, that is a heavenly one. Therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them." What does our faith and their faith do to God? It honors him. Our faith, even as opposition goes against us, honors God. We please him when focusing on the spiritual things rather than the worldly things. We can honor him even more by preaching the good news and working hard to bring people to God. Doing these things and many more honors God and shows our love and faithfulness towards him. In conclusion, so even if promises are never fulfilled or seem hopeless during your time on earth, we must stay faithful to God, and then we will see the fulfillments. I encourage you to set aside a time for you to think. We faithfully head home by sticking to the promises, drop an earthly mindset and turn to a spiritual mind, and have a confidence that by staying faithful, you are honoring him. We can only accomplish all these by faith and love for God, and we must become servants for him. Though this world may bring us down, and as long as you do these things, we will get a better, way more better world in heaven with him. Thank you.